Christmas Eve, which should have been filled with dazzling lights and overflowing joy, was something I had planned for weeks, with secret gifts prepared to share in that warm family moment. But then, right at the height of my excitement, my son looked me straight in the eye and coldly said, "Dad, let me be clear. This year, you are not allowed to set foot in this house for Christmas." The room fell into dead silence. My eyes widened, unable to believe what I had just heard. Yet almost instantly, I forced a faint smile, one colder than the snowy night outside. I turned my back, walked away, and that very night, I made a single phone call, canceling every mortgage, every payment I had been covering for them all these years. Do you think that was the end? No. That smile was only the beginning of my plan, the answer to everything I had endured for so long. You won't believe what I did next. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know what you think about this story. "This year, I could make my special honey-glazed ham," I said, leaning back into the leather sofa in Ingram's living room. That dish had once earned endless praise from his late mother Miriam every Christmas. She always said no one in the family could bring out such warmth in a recipe the way I did. The room fell silent. The scent of Sophia's expensive vanilla candles drifted through the air, mingling with the glow of a towering 12-foot Christmas tree. Ingram shifted uneasily, his wedding band glinting beneath the chandelier light. His shoulders tensed, and then the words struck, sharp as a blade. "Dad, let me be clear. This year, you are not welcome in this house for Christmas." My heart sank. I stared at him, convinced I must have misheard. What did you just say? Why am I not welcome?" Ingram swallowed hard, avoiding my gaze, but his voice carried arrogance and steel. "You know why. Sophia's family doesn't want you here. They don't like the way you interfere with our life. You just complicate everything. So, it's best if you stay away." His eyes dropped to the luxurious ebony furniture pieces I had paid for by working 2 jobs nearly a year straight. Back then, I endured the dull ache in my knee, an old wound from 8 relentless years of building, repairing, and maintaining this very home, all without complaint. I looked around the room. The Italian silk curtains I had bought when Sophia once demanded more privacy. The glittering crystal chandelier, each cut piece like a shard stabbing into my eyes, paid for by loans I shouldered. The polished hardwood floor, every joint laid with my sweat. This house, all its grandeur and beauty, stood on the bent back and calloused hands of Obadiah Lamb. "They don't want you," I repeated slowly, my voice heavy. "Son, are you truly letting your wife's family dictate whether your own father belongs at Christmas?" Ingram shrugged, his tone colder, almost merciless. "Dad, every time you show up, I feel like I'm carrying a burden. Do you know how hard I've worked just to be accepted by Sophia's family? Don't ruin this for me. Honestly, it's better if you don't come. I'm tired of always having to make excuses for you." I froze, my voice trembling but soft. "A burden? Have you forgotten who paid your tuition? Who bought your first house? All I ask is to share a place at the family table. Is that too much?" Ingram scowled, waving me off like an inconvenience. "Stop bringing up the past. No one cares what you did. All they see now is an old man, outdated and troublesome. You don't belong here anymore." A silence like ice filled the room. I forced a bitter smile, nodding slowly. "So, in your eyes, I'm nothing but a troublesome old man." The air thickened. My knees cracked as I rose, the sound echoing like the breaking of history itself. I walked past the family photos lining the hallway, where my face had gradually faded to the margins with each passing year. Past the coat closet stuffed with designer jackets worth thousands, items Sophia treated as ordinary. My hand rested on the cold metal of the doorknob. Without turning back, I said quietly, "Son, tell Sophia's parents. Feliz Navidad." The door closed behind me, final and merciless. Outside, snow fell thick and heavy. The December wind lashed against my face like a whip. I pulled my coat tighter and stepped into the freezing night. Yet even the bitter cold could not compare to the loneliness that seeped into my bones. In the distance, houses glowed with candlelight, laughter spilling warmly through frosted windows. I stood there, heart aching, longing for a home of my own, a place where no one could cast me out, where love was not measured by someone else's approval. Stepping out of the lavish house that I had built with my own hands, I found myself treading through the thick blanket of snow on that Christmas night. The wind was sharp, cutting against my face as if determined to tear apart my weathered soul. Every step felt unbearably heavy, carrying the weight of 8 years of sacrifice, of enduring the scorn of my son and his in-laws. A Christmas Eve that should have been filled with laughter was, for me, only loneliness and shadows. I trudged along the snow-covered street, raising my hand to wave at passing cars. Yet not a single one stopped. Their back seats were piled with presents, their windows glowing with dazzling lights, all of them rushing by like blades piercing my memories. I thought back to the days when Ingram was just a boy, and I would wrap his gifts in old newspaper, tucking them beneath the small tree in our living room. His laughter when he tore through the wrapping, the soft voice of my wife Miriam singing carols in the background, those moments now lived only in the unreachable corners of the past. All my life, I had bent my back to shoulder Ingram's mistakes and failures. I paid off his debts after every failed business venture, sold off what little I had to rescue him from ruin. I bought him extravagant furniture and luxury items just to win favor with his wife's family. The mahogany dining set that cost me nearly a fortune, the jewelry and designer clothes that Sophia flaunted on social media, all of it came from my pocket. When Ingram lashed out in violence and ended up in jail, I was the one who begged on my knees and scraped together compensation to buy his freedom. Even when Sophia's parents lay sick in a costly hospital, I was the one who quietly covered every medical bill. And in return, what did I receive? A daughter-in-law who never once cooked a meal or cleaned a room, who only knew how to shop, pose, and post photos online. Every purchase was paid for with credit cards under my name. I had become nothing but a silent shadow in the very house I built both servant and endless wallet. As I dragged my weary steps through the snow, my phone vibrated in my coat pocket. The name on the screen, Sophia. Slowly, I answered. "You're pathetic," her voice hissed, sharp and venomous. "An old, broke man who still thinks he matters. Who do you think needs you? You don't belong in this family. Even your wife, if she were alive, would be ashamed to have a useless man like you." Every word cut like a blade, but I said nothing. On the other end, Sophia continued her tirade, spewing contempt and tearing down not only my past but even the memory of my late wife. I quietly pressed the button to end the call. Then, I laughed. A low, raspy laugh, breaking the silence of the freezing night. It was not laughter born of joy but of bitter revelation. For years, I had fooled myself into believing my sacrifices would someday be acknowledged, but the truth was cruel. I had only ever been a tool for their convenience. With the storm howling around me, I lifted my gaze toward the distance, where homes glowed with candlelight and the sound of Christmas carols spilled into the night. Within me stirred a longing for a place of true peace, a home of my own, where no ingratitude or humiliation could touch me. That night, I made a silent decision, a decision that would change everything, and they, the ones who had scorned me, would never see it coming. I let the phone ring 4 times before finally picking it up, just long enough to make Sophia wonder if I even cared to answer. "Obadiah," she cooed, her voice dripping with fake sweetness, the same tone I had heard hundreds of times whenever she needed me to cover the water bill, the property taxes, or any expense their family couldn't handle. I heard about the little misunderstanding with Ingram. Misunderstanding? I leaned against the kitchen counter, still wrapped in my heavy coat. "No, Sophia, let's be clear, there was no misunderstanding. You made your opinion perfectly clear." Her excuses spilled out talk of traditional family atmosphere and expectations of elegance during the holidays. But when she let Miriam's name slip from her lips with contempt, I knew the line had been crossed. "Miriam had more dignity in her little finger than your entire family combined," I said coldly. And before she could respond, I hung up. The silence in the kitchen was absolute, but inside me something shifted relief. For the first time in years, I felt lighter, as if a crushing weight had been lifted. Slowly, I sat down and opened the manila folder I had avoided for months. Dozens of bank statements spread across the table, like evidence in a trial, the trial of my own foolishness. For 5 years, $2,950 a month had bled from my account to sustain their so-called castle. I had lived like a pauper, denying myself everything, eating discounted food, sometimes even expired groceries, refusing to buy medicine when I was sick, surviving on hot water instead, wearing threadbare clothes, and letting my own house crumble around me, all so Ingram and Sophia could live in luxury. I had even diverted the college fund for grandchildren I might never meet. The total stared back at me, $147,400. My retirement savings, Miriam's life insurance, every penny I had set aside gone. I picked up the phone and dialed the bank. "Customer service, this is Jennifer. How may I help you?" "I need to cancel an automatic transfer," I said, my voice calm but firm. She typed quickly, confirming each detail. "You've been making this payment for 5 years. Would you like to cancel it immediately?" I glanced around my small, worn house, the peeling walls, the flickering porch light, the outdated kitchen. All of it bore the scars of my sacrifices. "Cancel it immediately," I replied, my voice steady and final. "It's done, sir. Is there anything else I can assist you with?" I exhaled deeply. That's enough." Outside, December darkness settled over Spokane, the glow of Christmas lights from other homes flickering warm and bright. But for the first time in 5 years, my budget was finally free. And for the first time since Miriam passed, I would live for myself. I gathered the pile of debt papers and tossed them into the fireplace. Flames roared, devouring 5 years of humiliation, casting a glow across my face that felt almost like rebirth. Then I brewed a pot of hot tea, a small luxury I had denied myself for far too long. I set it beside a table I had prepared just for tonight. Fine wine, cured meats, cheese, warm bread, and even imported chocolates bought for myself. Tonight, I wasn't the broken, frugal old man. Tonight I lived like a king in my own modest home. Lifting my glass toward Miriam's photo, I whispered, "Merry Christmas" to me. And for the first time, I truly meant it. But what about you? Do you think I've truly let go of the past? Or am I only masking the pain with one night of indulgence? Share your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear your guess. The next morning, the December sky was crisp, sunlight streaming through the kitchen window. I sat back, savoring my second cup of coffee, feeling more at ease than I had in years. For the first time in half a decade, I didn't have to calculate how much money would be drained from my account in the next 3 days. Freedom tasted richer than the Colombian brew I had just treated myself to. At exactly 11:30, the phone rang. The name Sophia flashed across the screen like a glaring red warning sign. I picked it up. "Obadiah." Her voice came through, dripping with fake sweetness but edged with irritation. "You need to go to Spokane Airport and pick up my parents. Their flight from Portland lands at 1:35 this afternoon. Be there on time." I set my cup down, watching the steam curl upward as though it were trying to hide the smirk tugging at my lips. "Sophia, have you already forgotten what we talked about yesterday?" "Put that aside," she snapped. "We're talking about something practical now. My parents need a proper escort, and you're the only one free during the day. Dress appropriately, put on a tie. Oh, and wear that blue suit you had on for Ingram's graduation. They're very observant. Don't embarrass us. No request, no gratitude, just orders, coated in brazen entitlement." "Of course," I answered slowly. "You can count on me." I'm Ansley any Stark, it's a stands of complete. I'm Ansley actually was liken. I'm Ansley was liken. It's a skide, and Stark, and love the way, and Levin Tamper. It's a skide, action, and love the way. I'm Ansley, and love the way. I'm love the way. I'm love the way. Good. Be punctual. Don't make them wait. She hung up. I checked the clock. 10:25. Nearly 3 hours to go, but instead of preparing, I poured myself another cup of tea, opened yesterday's paper, and went back to the half-finished crossword puzzle. At 1:40, while their plane was landing, I was still in my favorite rocking chair in the living room, not at the airport, not lost in the crowd. Just me, a warm cup of Earl Grey, and soft jazz humming from my old radio. I closed my eyes, letting the piano notes wash over me, lighter than I'd felt in years. By 2:05, the phone buzzed. Sophia. I let it ring. At 2:20, a text lit up the screen. Dad, where are you? My parents are already off the plane. I flipped the phone face down and kept tapping my foot along with the music. By 3 o'clock, the calls became relentless. Sophia, then an unknown number, then Sophia again, buzzing like bees trapped in a glass jar. I stepped outside, where my neighbor Evelyn was hanging a Christmas wreath. Seeing me, she smiled. Obadiah, I just baked a fresh batch of cookies. Would you like some? I accepted the warm box, the aroma of butter and cinnamon spilling into the cold air. Thank you, Clarissa. What a perfect day. As I bit into a crisp cookie and sipped hot tea, somewhere across the city, 3 very irritated people were arguing at the airport about taxis, luggage, and why their chauffeur had disappeared. By 3:45, the calls were still coming. Sophia, unknown numbers, then Sophia again. The noise was maddening, like a trapped insect refusing to die down. I smiled, stepped back inside, unplugged the landline, and switched off my cell phone. Instantly, the house sank into perfect silence. That evening, I cooked myself a simple yet satisfying dinner: golden grilled cheese sandwiches, hot tomato soup, and a few more of Clarissa's cookies. I ate slowly, Christmas music drifting through the air, the neighbors' holiday lights twinkling outside my window, a scene of peace and warmth, something I hadn't allowed myself to imagine for years. Meanwhile, at Spokane Airport, Sophia's family was still waiting, angry and bewildered. But what they didn't know was this. This was only the beginning. The real surprise was yet to come. By 6 o'clock in the evening, I had finished dinner, loaded the dishes into the dishwasher, and prepared to enjoy one of those rare evenings entirely to myself. No last-minute phone calls begging for money, no degrading orders barked down the line. I slipped an old but beloved jazz tape into the player and let the warm, velvety notes fill the room. For the first time in years, the simple feeling of peace felt like the greatest luxury. Suddenly, furious pounding rattled the front door, loud, relentless, as though someone meant to break it down. The calm of my house shook under the weight of such brazen anger. I set my teacup aside, walked slowly to the door, already knowing who it would be. Through the peephole, I nearly laughed aloud at the sight. 3 figures crammed together, damp from the night mist, their clothes wrinkled, their expressions disheveled. They looked more like lost clowns than the so-called distinguished family they pretended to be. The moment I opened the door, Nathaniel stormed inside, face crimson, spittle flying with every shouted word. You miserable old man, you left my entire family stranded at that filthy airport for 3 hours like beggars. Do you know how people looked at us? You've humiliated us, made us a laughingstock. Right behind him, Clarissa staggered in, her hair tangled, makeup smeared, eyes blazing with venom. Unbelievable. At your age, and you stoop to such pathetic petty tricks? You've disgraced us, disgraced this family's name. You are nothing but a shameful, pitiful excuse for a man. Then Sophia swept in, throwing her crumpled designer coat off her shoulders, lips curling with contempt. Who do you think you are? My parents had to pay out of pocket for a taxi, dragging their luggage like nobodies, all because you dared to act superior. You're not only pathetic, you're cheap. I feel sick even calling you father-in-law. I straightened, my calm gaze sweeping over their distorted faces, my voice low and steady, cutting through their hysteria like a blade. That's enough. This is my house, and I want the 3 of you out now. Nathaniel growled, jabbing a trembling finger against my chest, each word dripping with fury. Do you even know who you're dealing with, old man? You've just signed your own death warrant. You'll be begging us for forgiveness before long. Remember my words. I tilted my head slightly, eyes calm as a frozen lake. If that was meant as a threat, you should know I've lived long enough to fear no one, least of all those who shout to cover up their own weakness. Clarissa hissed, her voice sharp as razors, each syllable slicing the air. You will pay, Obadiah, a heavy price. I'll make sure this entire town sees you for what you are, a washed-up old failure, abandoned by both family and society. Soon, you'll have nowhere left to breathe. Sophia tightened her grip on her father's arm, her eyes dripping with disdain as she sneered. Come, father, Don't waste another second on this pathetic relic. Let him rot in his little fantasy that's the harshest punishment of all." They turned on their heels, shoes clattering with angry defiance. Nathaniel still glanced back, face flushed red with rage, roaring, "You'll regret this, Obadiah. I swear on my life you'll crawl before us." I simply smiled faintly, my eyes glowing with unshaken serenity, as if their tantrum had been nothing more than a cheap stage performance. When the door closed behind them, I slid the lock in place and drew a deep, steady breath. The house already felt cleaner, lighter, as though 3 toxic shadows had just been cast out. I returned to my chair, restarted the jazz tape, and let the soft saxophone fill the air, drowning out the remnants of their noise. Outside, the neighbors' Christmas lights twinkled, children's laughter rang out, and someone stopped by with a fresh tin of cookies. I smiled, sipping my warm tea. Instead of fear, my heart carried only peace, and a quiet, thrilling anticipation for the chaos that family was about to bring upon themselves. 3 days later, I was sitting leisurely at the breakfast table, a steaming cup of coffee by my side, while the television in the living room played the morning news. Suddenly, a headline scrolled across the screen in bold letters. "Spokane businessman abandons in-laws at airport during Christmas storm." I froze. The screen displayed my face, an outdated company photo from nearly 6 years ago. My hair appeared grayer, my eyes weary, painting me as a man far past his prime. The anchor's voice was steady, but each word landed like the cold slice of a knife. Nathaniel and Clarissa Jenkins, a couple in their early 50s, traveled to Spokane to visit their daughter for the holidays, but were abandoned at the airport for more than 4 hours while a snowstorm raged. Their relative, Obadiah Lamb, failed to show up as promised. The couple was forced to pay hundreds of dollars for a taxi in dangerous winter conditions. At their age, such treatment is not only irresponsible but cruel. "A snowstorm?" I let out a bitter laugh. That day had been clear and bright, 52 degrees, the roads bone dry. Yet on screen, they ran footage of snow-covered runways and stranded airplanes, a fabricated drama staged to turn a minor inconvenience into a national tragedy. The broadcast continued, now with Nathaniel's so-called statement. "We still can't believe someone could be so heartless. At our age, we deserve care, not abandonment." Next came Clarissa, her eyes fake and watery, her voice breaking in practiced sorrow. We called him repeatedly, but Obadiah never picked up. His erratic behavior makes us worry about his mental health. The final blow landed at the close of the report. Some in Spokane's business community have begun to question whether Obadiah Lamb, whose career has long since faded, is becoming a burden to his own family. What had they turned me into? A senile, unstable old man, clinging to pity, a public disgrace. And the cruelest part? They expected me to bow my head, to swallow this humiliation in silence. I switched off the television, set my coffee cup aside, and felt not fear, but a strange, icy clarity, the sharpened awareness of a beast cornered. They wanted to make me their laughingstock? I would turn their polished masks into the very noose that dragged them down. I opened my laptop. Their so-called accomplishments littered social media like garish decorations, begging to be ripped apart. Nathaniel Jenkins, once a bank executive, now parading on LinkedIn in $1,000 suits, a member of some exclusive golf club, toasting 30-year-old whiskey with Spokane's so-called elite, a man obsessed with power and with more to lose than anyone else. Clarissa, her Instagram feed looked like a glossy magazine, spread wine tastings in Napa, villas in Mexico, posed photos with high society at charity auctions. Every image screamed luxury, but I knew where the money came from me. Sophia, my daughter's Facebook was a scrapbook of happy family moments, the gleaming kitchen I had paid to remodel, lavish dinners under a roof I had kept warm by covering the utility bills. Her latest post read, "Can't wait to host the Christmas party and show off my event planning skills." And the most incriminating thread lay with Ingram, Sophia's husband. On LinkedIn, I saw a fresh connection with Patricia Morrison, the very journalist who had written that smear piece about me. The chain was obvious. Nathaniel pulled strings, Ingram provided access, Patricia spread the ink, and together, they orchestrated this attack to crush my name. Leaning back in my chair, I caught my reflection in the cold glow of the laptop screen. For a brief second, I saw two men staring back. The Obadiah Lamb they painted a pitiful, discarded relic, and the true Obadiah Lamb, a businessman who had built everything from nothing, a man who never allowed anyone else to write his story. They thought I would take this quietly? A fatal mistake. I began gathering evidence: bank statements, receipts for the kitchen renovation, canceled checks, copies of the mortgage papers. The numbers piled up more than $250,000 I had poured into supporting that so-called perfect family over the past 5 years. Every dollar would now become a weapon. On the wall calendar, December 24th was circled in bold red ink. Not because it was Christmas, but because it would be the day they were unmasked before friends, neighbors, Spokane's social circle, all those still enchanted by their charade. A smile tugged at my lips. In my mind, each step of the plan aligned itself, sharp and precise as a chessboard. Tomorrow, as the Christmas lights glowed, they would learn the truth. Declaring war on me was the last mistake they would ever make. That Christmas morning, the sky over Spokane was weighed down with heavy gray clouds. The bitter cold seeped through every crack in the windows, the kind of day meant only for warm family gatherings. But for me, Obadiah Lamb, no door would be opened in welcome. I stood in my small room, straightening the navy blue suit I had pressed with care, the very suit I had once worn to Miriam's funeral. Before leaving, I paused in front of her framed photograph, resting my hand gently on the wooden edge. Miriam, today I will do the last thing left to restore my honor. I packed the leather case with the files I had prepared meticulously. Bank statements, bills, receipts, screenshots from social media, all the evidence I had quietly gathered over the past 5 years. Each file was marked in bold red ink: lies, false, distorted truths. 12 folders for 12 dinner guests. Not one of them would be able to hide from the truth tonight. At 6:45 in the evening, I arrived at Kendall Yards. The home of Ingram and Sophia glowed with festive lights, the sound of Christmas carols spilling out onto the street. Cars lined both sides of the road, and through the windows, I saw them laughing around the table, glasses raised, their smiles wide. I took in a sharp breath of the freezing night air and pushed the door open. Warmth and laughter rushed toward me, but the moment their eyes fell upon me, the atmosphere shifted. Shocked faces hardened into cold stares. A few suppressed laughs broke the silence. Fingers pointed my way. Still, I remained calm, my grip tightening on the case in my hand. "Good evening," I said evenly, placing the leather case on the marble table. "I hope no one minds if I join tonight's celebration." Ingram was the first to stand, his voice trembling and hesitant. "Dad, what are you doing? Can't you ever let me live in peace?" I met his gaze, eyes that once filled me with pride but now carried only fear. "Tonight, you'll learn who has truly been supporting this family all these years." I opened the case and placed a folder before each guest. "Here is 5 years of financial support. $168,000 paid toward your mortgage alone. Add to that the deposits, the renovations, the furnishings, and dinners like this one. All of it came from me." Papers rustled. Faces around the table paled as they read the figures, the signatures, the stamped seals of the banks. Sophia tried to steady her voice but faltered. He's lying. Ingram, call someone." "Lying?" I pulled out a stack of newspapers, red marks slashed across the pages. "These are the articles you used to slander me. Unstable man abandons the elderly in harsh weather. Ridiculous on that very day. The sun was shining at 79 degrees. It was you who manipulated and twisted the truth." The room descended into chaos. My children, Ingram and Sophia, scrambled to defend themselves, but their words were drowned out by the whispers and sharp accusations of their guests. "This is disgraceful!" cried an elderly woman wearing a pearl necklace. "Clarissa, Nathaniel, you exploited him for 5 years and then dared to smear his name publicly." The murmurs turned into waves of condemnation, all directed at Clarissa and Nathaniel. The two who once sat confidently at the head of the table now shook with shame, their faces drained of color. Sophia tried to salvage the moment. Please, everyone, this is just a family matter, don't misunderstand. Number, I cut her off, my voice striking the room like a hammer. This stopped being a family matter the day you painted me as a villain in the press. Tonight, the truth is laid bare, before all of you. I snapped the case shut, adjusted my tie, and pressed the photo of Miriam hidden in my pocket. Enjoy your dinner. This will be the last one paid with my money. I turned and walked out. Behind me, chaos erupted, shouts, accusations, the scrape of chairs against the floor. A perfect Christmas dinner shattered into ruin. Out in the cold night, I clutched Miriam's picture tightly, whispering, "They deserve this." The glow of Christmas lights faded behind me. To me, that fading glow was the sweetest holiday music I had ever known. The letter arrived on a Saturday morning at the end of March. The delivery man handed me a thick envelope at the door, marked with bold, impersonal words. Notice of contract breach. Final demand for payment. I didn't rush to open it. Instead, I let out a quiet laugh, half bitter, half relieved. That laugh carried the weight of years, when my family piled endless burdens onto my shoulders, and now, at last, retribution had come knocking on theirs. I signed the receipt, placed the letter on the polished wooden table in my newly renovated living room, and looked around. The house, once worn and tired, now gleamed with new life. Cream-colored walls, a leather sofa, a crystal chandelier casting a warm golden glow. This was my home, and for the first time in years, it truly belonged to me. No more endless mortgages, no more bills siphoned away to feed the extravagant lifestyle of Ingram and Sophia. That Thursday evening, as the soft spring breeze stirred outside, there was a knock at the door. I opened it and found Ingram standing there. The arrogance that once clung to him was gone. He looked like he had aged 10 years overnight, sunken eyes shadowed with exhaustion, a wrinkled suit, the stale scent of smoke and despair clinging to him. "Dad," his voice cracked, raw and unsteady. We need to talk." Silently, I stepped aside to let him in. His gaze wandered around the living room in disbelief, the shining furniture, the neatly arranged family photos, and above the fireplace, the serene portrait of Miriam, radiating a peace that seemed to judge him quietly. "It's beautiful," he whispered. "Of course," I replied, settling into my armchair. "That's what happens when you learn to use your money for yourself, rather than throwing it away on people who never valued you." Ingram sat gingerly on the edge of the sofa, as if afraid to touch something he no longer had a right to claim. His words came haltingly at first, then spilled out like a dam, breaking apologies, regrets, pleas. He spoke of long nights of struggle, the house on the brink of foreclosure, of Sophia walking out into the cold and not returning, of in-laws who now treated him with contempt. Tears streaked his face. Then, like a child, he sank to his knees beside me, pressing his head against my chest, sobbing uncontrollably. His body shook as he clung to me, desperate, terrified that if he let go, he would lose his last refuge. "Dad, I was wrong. Wrong from the night I let them humiliate you at the Christmas dinner. Wrong from the moment I chose silence instead of standing by you. I regret it all. I've always been proud of you, but I was too much of a coward to admit it." I placed a hand on his back, patting gently just as I had when he was a boy. Years of anger, years of hurt, melted away in that instant. I didn't lecture him. I didn't scold. I simply wrapped my arms around my son, letting him cry out the pride and blindness that had chained him for so long. When he finally lifted his head, his eyes were red and swollen, but behind them glimmered a faint light of hope. I smiled softly and reached out my hand. He took it, then leaned his forehead against mine, the same childish gesture he used after every apology in the past. "I've always been proud of you," he said again, this time clearly. I nodded. "Then there's still hope." We sat in silence for a long while, no words needed. Outside, the city sank into night, but within my home, warmth and light lingered. Later that night, after Ingram left, I poured myself a glass of whiskey and stepped out onto the back porch. But before I could take a sip, another knock came at the door. This time, it was my neighbor's, smiling warmly, arms full, one carrying a bottle of wine, another a tray of pastries. "Tomorrow, there's a gathering at my house," the old man next door said. "You must come. It's been too long since you've truly been one of us, and the whole neighborhood wants to welcome you back." For the first time in years, I laughed without bitterness. After so long, I finally felt like I belonged somewhere again. That night, the whiskey tasted different. It tasted like freedom. Like the beginning of a new life, not one dependent on anyone's approval, but built on my own choice, to live for myself and for those who truly cherished my presence. And that was my story. What should have been a Christmas filled with joy instead revealed bitter truths about greed, ingratitude, and the breaking point of silent endurance. I chose to stand up, to no longer remain quiet while being disrespected, and that single decision changed everything. But what about you? If you were in my place, would you choose forgiveness, or would you choose justice? I want to challenge you to leave just one sentence in the comments. I will not stay silent anymore. Write those words below to prove that you, too, will never let arrogance or ingratitude trample your dignity. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and make sure you're subscribed so you won't miss the surprising stories yet to come. And if you want to see the next chapter of my plan for justice, click the video right below this one. Trust me, you won't want to miss it.